Welcome to the Resale Revolution podcast. I am Andrew.
And I'm Derik.
And our guest today is Jen, aka the Pudgy Picker. She's an very experienced reseller, and she has an antique booth, sells online, and spends her weekends at garage sales. Her YouTube channel is Pudgy Picker, and is an awesome look into the mind of her expert reselling ability. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Boy, I sound impressive, don't I?
I'll be honest with you. Whenever I was checking you out, as far as like online, doing your internet stalking, as people may do sometimes.
Were you Googling me?
I was Googling you. I was going back and forth with different name, Pudgy Picker, Jen, and all this other stuff. But when I ran across your YouTube channel, I was like, whoa, this lady's got some pretty good following here, and obviously started checking out some of your videos, and obviously reached out to you to try to bring you onto the podcast. So some pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It doesn't take much. I sit and talk for hours on my videos. So, I had a comment not too long ago. Somebody's like, I just love to hear you talk. And I told my husband that, and he goes, oh my God, they don't live with you. So I found my calling in YouTube,
Well, that's what it's about, I guess. That's what it's about. I'm sure most of our spouses are probably a little sick of hearing us talk. So it's always good to find an outlet for that.
Yeah, and I think in the beginning, too, I'd tell my husband, oh, I'm going to get this amount for that. And he'd go, oh, nobody's going to buy that. Now I bring something home and he goes, oh, my gosh, how much you going to get for that? So his view has changed into, people are going to pay that for it. I'm like, yeah, I got this. You'll see.
Cool. Well, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit actually about how long have you been selling, reselling, I guess, items, and what channels do you typically try to resell those items on, as far as like eBay and booth and whatnot? So give us a little history on you.
Well, I think I started when my kids were quite small. I was a stay-at-home mom and was looking to bring in a little bit of extra money and income, and I ended up starting to sell probably the year 2000 or right 2000, 2002, right around then. I don't know why, and I thought about it before. I was selling jeans, so I don't know why I kind of latched onto that, but that was kind of how I started. And then the more I learned, then the more you see and the more like you can't pass things up. And it's nice when you go in somewhere that you're able to pick a lot of different things and not just go in, I'm just doing clothes, or I'm just doing knickknacks, or I'm just doing art. I saw so many other things that I knew would sell. So I just started picking up more and more items. So I've been selling on there for quite some time. And then I started selling in a retail
Is that
space.
eBay? Is that eBay what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
eBay.
And then I started selling in an antique mall. And I was in one particular mall for like 16 years.
Whoa.
So I was kind of expanding a little bit there. And then I moved to this new location that I'm at now. And it's, even though it's only like a half an hour difference between my old place, what sells and for how much I can sell things for is increased. So I am basically at half the space I was at the other mall, and I'm making about twice as much.
Do you think that's due to location or like storefront? What do you contribute that to?
I think the first location was more rural, and I think a lot of people were looking for things to make other things, or they were looking at things to add to other things. And in the place I'm at now, people just want to come in and pick something up, buy it, take it home, and set it down. I have to stage and do more things to sell things now in this location, but I can get a much higher price. So I've been at this location for about 7 years.
Okay.
So it's
what's the cost in the booth? Was it more expensive to move to the better location?
It's funny. I'm a very take out a pencil and paper kind of person and figure out. And the other location where they were at, they were open less hours than the new place is. They were only open, I think, 4 days a week. The place I'm at now is open 5 days a week, and they're open an extra hour a day. So me being the analytical person that I am, I sat down and I figured out, what is my rent per hour? Because I want, apples to apples to figure it out. And it literally was just pennies more to be at the location I'm at now. And so it made sense to move. And it's much closer to where I live now, which is nice.
So is
So
it like in a strip mall, the antique, your
yes,
antique
it
store?
is. It's in what used to be, I don't know if you guys have a store called Big Lots.
Yeah.
It's
Of
basic, yeah,
course. Of
that's
course.
basically the size of the store, and that's what it was until they moved and then they remodeled. So there's yeah, it's in a strip mall that has like a clothing store, also has a title and license bureau, which is great. Lots of people are like, well, I got time to kill. Hey, I'll go over there and shop. So it has a decent amount of traffic. It's on a main drag. The other one was kind of more out. You could see it from the freeway, but people would go, oh, maybe I'll stop there one day. And, they don't always.
Right.
The
Location,
place,
location, location, location. I
and
mean,
the,
it's
the place was huge. And I'm in a smaller place now, which is good because I think by the time people get in and they start walking around after a while, they're like, oh, I'm tired. And, I'm done. So I think a lot of times, you think, oh, a bigger place, it's going to get more people. But are people going to walk all the way around to get where you are?
right.
So that was an issue. This place
How many
is smaller,
how
but
many vendors are in your current place? How many vendors?
it's a little over 100, and we
Okay.
have 111 spaces. And my
Okay.
space is 10 by 10. At the old location, I was in a 10 by 20. And I think I was getting to a point where my quality wasn't what I wanted it to be, because it was a constant, oh, I need to fill the space. I need to fill the space. So I got more
Cluttered.
into, yeah. So I got more into quantity rather than quality. And I feel like the space I'm in, even though it's smaller, I feel like it's more like curated. It's more like I chose every item that goes in my space. So it feels more personal to me than just grabbing stuff and trying to fill shelves because it looks
So
empty.
so you sell a lot of items. So what would you consider kind of your niche of items that you sell?
I sell a lot of smalls, um, which would be physically smaller items plus maybe a lot of my items are under $20.
Okay.
So I sell quantity is my big thing. I like to have a lot of different prices for different people. I like to think
Hmm.
that anybody could come in my space and find something to buy, from a little kid that's got a couple bucks in his pocket to buy mom and dad a gift, to somebody who wants a nicer piece of art or something else. So I
And
have a lot of
you get
small.
most of these items garage selling?
Well, being in Cleveland, Ohio, just a few minutes from the lake, my garage sale season is very small. So it's just starting to start up now, and it goes through maybe August into when kids are starting to go back to school. So the rest of the year, I'm at thrift stores, even the occasional, find something along the side of the road. Wherever I can find it, I can find it. But I have some decent thrift stores in my area that do half price everything once a week.
Oh
So
wow.
that really helps me out.
Do you have items that you personally kind of think are super duper cool as far as, niche kind of items, but you stay away from them because they just don't do very well?
There's always that thing you're drawn to,
Right.
and I always catch myself picking something up, and I'm like, I already have two or three, and they're not selling, but oh, I just like it. And
Yeah.
every business, whether you're, Amazon or you're Walmart or you're us, littler guys, you're not going to sell everything you buy. And that, you're always going to have that certain amount of things that you have that you're trying to clear out. Every store has a clearance rack for a reason. So
Sure.
anticipating what people are going to like, or at a price that I can buy it and I can make a decent amount of money on it. there's always that mental gymnastics of, if I buy this, is it going to sell? How much space is it going to take up? And a lot of really unique items I kind of pick up, but I know they're going to take a little while to sell because, not everybody has the room or enjoys that particular style. And I always call it the trinity of resale. You have to have the right person, the right price, and the right time. Those things need to come together for that sale to happen.
How long will
And
I
you
know.
keep some? How long will you? Sorry, Derek, but how long will you normally keep something? Let's say it's going to sell, but how long would you normally keep something before you say, "Hey, maybe I need to slash the price or drop down a little bit"? Or what does that typically look like for you?
when it comes to my physical space, I have to be more careful because I'm paying for every square inch in that box,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And I want to make sure that in our business too, and having a physical space, we have people that are in there 2 to 3 times a week. And then there's some people that are there every week. So if your space doesn't look any different than it did maybe last week or the week before, a lot of regulars are just going to go, I don't really see anything new, and they're going to keep
Mm,
on moving. So that's something that, you're constantly moving it around. And if you have something that hasn't sold, move it somewhere in the space, um,
right.
or threaten to take it home. That's the other thing. You threaten to take it home, it sells somehow.
Of
It's
course, of course, it's karma.
it's like, if you
How
don't
often?
sell the next week, you're going home.
How often do you refresh your current booth? Like, what would you say your current rotation is as far as
I'm
moving stuff
there.
around?
I'm physically there every week. So I'm
Okay.
always bringing something out. As far as moving things around, our owners, thankfully, will have restocking days. And I know a lot of booths owners don't do that they'll have a day that they're not normally open, and they'll be open just for the vendors from, like, 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the evening. And that's good for people who want to move a big piece of furniture, or they have, a big booth move around, and that happens usually every like 3 months. So that's
Okay.
when I do more of a major change. My booth space and my YouTube channel. If you go on there, I really really try to do booth tours.
Go ahead and plug
As
your
I
YouTube channel.
Yes,
Go ahead and
been on
plug it.
YouTube forever. It seems like. And I do booth tours. I do some tutorials. I show what I buy. I show hauls. Uh, just I try not to be like, well, here's how you do it, and then you do this, and this is the wrong way, and this is the right way. I've always approached YouTube as, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you want to try it, good. If you don't, see if it works for you. So I try and have it. It's more of a, like, you just tune into a friend and you're sitting and you're listening to me yap and show my goodies and, old stories, and, oh, I remember this, and, hey guys, you remember that. And so it's more of that, get a cup of coffee, sit down and listen to me talk for a while. But I mean, I love sharing what I'm doing. I've never been a shy person. I'm the last of 5 kids, so if you didn't yell and speak up, you just blended into the the background. So I mean, I love to be able to show people what I'm getting. And, like you say, it's, you have all the people in your life who are like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, whatever. And then you have people that are resellers and, hey, I got this, or I'm going to do that. And they're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. That's great. So it's nice to find people to shop with.
So, so do you have a rule, like when you buy something? Like myself, I keep a rule, like if I can't sell it for 50% more than what I bought it for, I don't buy it.
Absolutely. If it's
Okay.
a if it's a bigger or more expensive item, I will be, I have to at least make double. But I honestly, especially when I'm garage selling, I can literally find something for $1 and sell it for 20. So I
Right,
mean,
right.
yeah, if I can really, get a big
Uh,
chunk of money off of there, that's
I
really
do a
good.
lot of smalls as well.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at what can I buy for a quarter and sell for $3, like,
Yep. And
and
I
sell
think
multiple. Yeah.
that's really people miss that, because it's like, well, I got this, this huge piece of furniture, and I got this and I got that. Not everybody has money to buy something for $1,000, and not
Right.
everybody has a space in their house for this big item, but they can definitely talk themselves into something that's $15, $20 or less.
Well,
or a
because I
little
would imagine
table.
if, whenever I walk around antique malls, and primarily because I'm not when I go there, even when I'm shopping in normal retail, uh, I don't necessarily have an item in mind that I'm trying to purchase. So yeah, I'd
Yep.
be more inclined to pick up a small GI Joe figure that I had when I was, 10, for $15-20 versus me picking up some big vein that I have zero place to put inside my house for $200, right? So, because all
Yeah.
I'm going to go do is take that $200 item and go put it in my basement, for it to collect dust. But the GI Joe toy, that's going to hit my desk, and I'm probably going to play with that throughout the day. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's a big deal because a lot of people are like, "Oh, smalls, you got to sell so many of them." I mean, in the last few years of my mall, I have been one of the top 5 sellers for my size space.
hmm,
And it's funny because I'll have other vendors come over and they'll go, "I don't know how you're making so much money." And it's like, because I like the idea that I can fit any budget, and
hmm,
that anybody, a man, woman, a kid, anybody can come into my space and they can find something that they like and that they can afford.
Mhm.
And not all spaces are that way. And then if you sell something for $1,000, wow, that's great. That's a great payday. But how
right.
long does it have to sit there? And how many people walk by and said, "Oh my gosh, that's so much money," or "Where would I put it?" Or, so I think smalls are really overlooked a lot.
Sure. Well, let's switch this up a little bit. Let's kind of jump over on the eBay train. So I know you do a lot of selling on eBay. And if someone isn't on eBay, what advice would you give them to get on eBay and why?
eBay is constantly changing. It's ever evolving. There's so many new features, and I tell you, this little phone, that's all you need. I do most of my listing, 98% of my listing, on my phone. So it's a lot easier to do than it used to be years ago. And if it feels big and overwhelming, literally go to YouTube, type in "how to start selling on eBay." Don't go shopping. The first thing I tell people is, "You're okay, I'm going to be a reseller. I'm going to go shopping and I'm going to." No, you first source from your house. Walk around your house. Yeah, I'm looking at both of you. Walk around your house. What could I sell, or what could I try to sell to see if this is something I want to do, or if I enjoy, or if it'll work for me. Do that and start small. You can do everything from your phone. All you need is your phone, maybe a nice backdrop, which I have a little photo area. Um, that's all you need, and a little scale. And that's enough to get you started. Go on YouTube. There are just tutorials you could watch, years worth of, ideas of what to do and what to buy. Start small. You have little things. Little things are easier to ship. Clothes,
So,
they don't break in the mail. That's another place to start.
Mm.
So,
do you ever take things out of your booth and like just stick them on eBay if they're not selling? Or
it's funny. I don't do that as much as you think that I would. Some people will have stuff listed and it's in the antique mall, and that would make me crazy. I can't keep track of all that. I mean, my brain is getting to be oatmeal and Swiss cheese, and it's like I can't, because knowing me, I would take it in, it would sell, and then I go in and it fell and it's chipped or something now. So I usually don't do that.
Oh,
Yeah. So I mean, or it happens to sell there, and oh, now I got to disappoint somebody online. We
yeah.
had we had somebody. This is a side note, but we had somebody coming in and taking a lot of pictures. Just a customer. We were kind of like, well, that's kind of weird. So found out this person was going into our antique mall, taking pictures, listing the item, waiting for it to sell, and then coming and buying it. Is that crazy? I mean, I'm all for sourcing, but that was a little bit whack.
that's a little, clearly it's a decent, another side hustle, I guess, but it's a little on the shady side. Like I would be a little
Yeah,
leery of that SOB. But
that's something I'm eventually going to do a video on, is kind of like the ethics of reselling, because
sure.
there are so many little gray areas that, that a lot of people don't think of. But what ended up happening with that guy is he
So you
took a
got flat
picture.
tires?
No, even better. He took a picture, and the guy that was selling the item in the booth, it was like a kid's like ride-on toy or something, an old one. He he had it listed, or he had it in his booth for like $150. He looked it up on eBay, found it, could see it was a picture taken at the mall, and knew it was his item, and he bought the item off the guy. And then he went back to the store and he jacked up the price to like 4 times of what it was. So the guy was like, yeah, I made a sale. He came to the store and saw that the price had been marked up and about had a heart attack. So I thought that was a pretty cool way of doing that.
That is that's a good way to turn that around on someone. Do you
Yeah.
sell your items in on eBay higher than in your booth? Can you tell our audience a little bit more about how you handle that process?
There's a lot of things that I sell on eBay that will fetch a higher price on eBay that if I put them in my mall, it would be a lot less. And there's little niche type things that a lot of people don't consider that have a lot of value. But there's things such as like old stationery, unused stationery, letters. I bought at an auction a box lot had a woman's uh, just little notes of the weather and what the president was saying. And these were from like the 20s up to the 60s
Oh
of
wow.
this woman every day making notes. I got the box for less than $20 and I sold it for almost $300 on eBay. And it was just like a walk through history. It was one of the coolest things I've ever found. And just finding stuff like that is, I mean, you just get so excited about it. Those are the things I really look for. I've sold a lot of correspondence. I got letters from a man that was in a tuberculosis, sanitarium forever ago, and it was writing letters to his sweetheart. I ended up selling those in my booth. So I kind of weigh out, what is going to sell on eBay, and then what's, more just, it's not worth the money. And especially if I have a lot of smalls, which I do, I mean, they won't fetch as high a price on eBay. And, it takes the same amount of time, energy to list and sell something you're going to make $5 on or $50 on. So
Right.
I try to be more selective about what I'm putting on there.
How do you categorize? I mean, so how many? So 3 questions in one question here. How many items do you have in your booth? How many items do you currently have listed on eBay? And how in God's name do you keep track of all of them? Excel spreadsheet? How do you do it?
Ugh. I have
Ah, that's a
probably,
big sigh.
yeah, I probably have 5,000 items in my booth. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. And
How many do you have,
I,
Derik?
I would say 300 to 400 roughly.
So Jen
So
crushes you.
yeah.
but I have a
Okay.
lot of small stuff because I've had vendors say to me,
Do you have something
why?
small that you can show us on the camera here? What do you call
Oh,
small?
I just bought a whole bunch of these starfish. I have things in my basement that when as they come in, I have boxes that I kind of categorize things. And then I have a lot of nautical. Nautical does really good because we're so close to the lake. So,
Mm.
I have one spot in the very front of my booth. It's like a 25 by 25 stand. And I constantly change that out to a themed. So each month that particular theme is changed out. So after holidays, I have like nautical. I've even like just put all white stuff, just all white items, and anything to make a real striking, make somebody stop and decide to step into your space. Because I have something that I think everybody would like, of course, but am I going to get them to step into the booth to see that? Are they going
Right.
to pick it up and say, "Oh, how much is that?" So that's a big thing. As far as eBay, I have almost 900 things listed.
Okay. So you have 5,000 in your booth, ballparkish, and 900. So about 5,900 items from eBay to store to your booth that you currently have potentially for sale. That's
Yep.
insane.
Yeah, and the stuff I have that's ready to go out, because all year round I'm looking for winter, I'm looking for fall, I'm looking for spring. So as I find those items, I have big bins that have the seasons or have, nautical or certain items, so that when I'm ready for that, I can pull my bins out, go through, make sure everything's priced accordingly, and then it can just go straight out.
So you haven't
So
seriously. So you're say you go to a garage sale and you buy 10 items. I'm assuming you write down how much you paid for it. How do you keep that in check? What's your process for all that? I mean, that many items. I mean, you lose
yeah,
track.
I have a very good tax guy. I mean, I keep all my receipts. I have it's a lot. That's
But
the
do you,
unfun part of the
of
business.
course, but do you use like an Excel spreadsheet or anything to kind of categorize things and list them out? It's you just
No,
nothing.
no, I don't, because what my tax guy needs is, I don't need to have everything written out for him.
Well, I was just mainly talking about for trying to keep yourself organized as far as how many the items you have, what you purchase them for, and what you're selling them for. To me, I'm just trying to think of ways that would be better to keep yourself organized
Yeah.
without going crazy with just because you
What?
wouldn't remember what you have. Like you're like, oh man, a pair of 5-year-old pair of or 5-year-old little kid pair of galoshes would be great because it's getting into spring here.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, do you remember every item that you have? I mean, do you go, I have those? Or do you find
On
stuff and go, wow, it's Christmas. I didn't even know I had it.
No, I'm pretty well organized, because
Okay.
also in my basement I have an area that has all of my I have like a shipping station. So I got all of that is ready with all of my, all of my supplies. My son finally I know I'm ashamed to admit it. I'm a dinosaur, but I was taping on my labels to ship. And my son, for my birthday last year, bought me a Dymo printer, and he's like, I'm so
All
tired
right.
of you. He's like, I'm going to set it up. I'm going to help you. So once I got that, I'm like, I should have done this years ago.
Right, right, right. Make your
But
life
I mean,
easy.
so I have that shipping area. And then I have my basement is basically all the items that are organized. And I do have a spreadsheet for eBay. And then the
Okay.
other half is inventory that's going to go out to the store, that is categorized, so that it's easy to get to. So I have certain little, use a fancy 50-cent word on you, vignettes, where you're staging items that are like items. Like I have, the wine mom shelf. So I have that with cork cages and glasses with funny sayings, and then I have more of an Asian shelf where I have the little old jade trees, and I have incense and things. And then I have like an African shelf that has, more of that, because I'm in a very diverse area and that
Sure.
stuff's in high demand. So a lot of times if I have items, I'm getting a little skinny on there. What I'll do is I'll walk around my space and I'll just take a few pictures to
Okay.
remind myself what I need to bring out. So that
So,
helps too.
kind of moving on from eBay a little bit, do you use any other avenues to resell, like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, any of that stuff?
I do occasionally. I'm getting to a point where I have a certain amount of inventory that I know I'm just not going to be able to, you know, if I have a larger item, it ends up being more difficult. We have in our mall, we have a big area in the back that is for furniture. And as vendors, we're allowed to have a couple of pieces, one piece of art and then one, actual piece of furniture. So I can only move larger items, at a certain pace. So I will, put it on Marketplace.
Hmm.
I just had I bought an old Victrola case with nothing in it, but beautiful condition. I got it in an auction. Nobody was bidding on it. So I bid like $10 on it, and I took it out. It was one of those, hey, I could do this, I could make this, I could make that. But I'm like, I got to be honest with my time. I'm just going to take it out there and I'll put a lower price than I would have had I done anything with it. Like open it up and it's a bar or something. And I ended up selling it for like $90. So somebody else, it's their project now.
So kind of
So
post pandemic, I know a lot of the auctions that were in person kind of went to online. Do you still do a lot of those local online auctions as well?
I'm the kind of person that I like to physically look at an item before I buy it. I'm just that way. I have a few auctions that I go to. If anybody ever wants to go to an auction, just look up auctionzip.com, because people are like, "Oh, there's no auctions around me." Yes, there is. You just don't know about them.
So when you
So
say auctions, would estate sales also be on that auctionzip.com?
I no, I think it's in-person auctions and it's online auctions. Because a lot of places that, like you were talking about during the pandemic, went to online, and some of them have stayed there because they're like, hey, we don't have to have a big building. We don't have to set everything up a certain way. It's more manpower to operate and to have, the auction take place rather than people just looking through, and then coming and picking the item up. But I like to look and touch things. And I'm
Yeah.
also a big box lot girl. I love some box lots. So I'm always finding things in a box lot that I know I can sell and make money on. But a lot of the people who are, "Ooh, we buy only the really expensive, really fancy stuff." I'm like, I'll find a box lot, I'll buy it for $10 and I'll make lots of money off of it. So I like that. And a lot of auctions don't really, they'll show pictures, but they show, oh, look at this big item. Look, we're going to show you all the different views. But the box lots, nobody cares about those. It's like, I
Right.
do.
So back to
So
the estate sale question. Do you go to any estate sales and purchase stuff, or what's your thoughts and feelings on those?
if I happen to be in the area, or if I see one, I will. I don't go out of my way, because a lot of people say, oh, well, the prices are expensive. They are.
Yeah.
Um, but there's also a lot of things that the estate sales, they don't hold value in, that I can make money on.
I like the
So when I
smalls.
go, yeah, when I go to an auction or I go to an estate sale, I don't go in the main area where the people are sitting and they got the jewelry and all that. I go to the basement, I go to the garage, I go to the bathroom. I know. No, I don't go to the bathroom.
Right,
I
right.
will literally I could buy an old bottle of perfume and sell it for $50. So there's a lot of things that the estate sales, they don't really know about. They don't focus on those things. And that's where you can make a lot of money, because they're like, oh, nobody wants that. Here, you can have the whole box for $5. And I'm like,
I
fine, that's
noticed
good
that
for
they
me.
they typically price furniture and things like that really high, and everything else, or art even, they price art really high, I think, estate
Yeah.
sales.
And then they'll have, like, a lot of the ones around here will do, like, 1 or 2 days of everything's the price it is, don't even bother asking. And then the last day they'll say, okay, everything's half. So, you have different types of people looking for different types of things. But this time of year, starting out right before garage sale, is there's tons of church sales and rummage sales and those kind of things.
Hmm.
And I love those, because I just went to one yesterday on the other side of Cleveland, and I spent like $27. And it's usually older people's stuff at the church sale. And they got like a dime on it, and you pick it up and they're going, oh, you could just have that. I mean, it's a whole different thing. So I can really, clean up at those. And
Because nobody wants to put that crap back in their car and drive it home, or drag it back in their garage. I mean, you know,
yeah.
the stuff
So
that's
I
left
got
over on
like,
day three of a garage sale are typically, it's like, I'll give you $1 for this table. And they're like,
yeah,
take it. Just take it
yeah.
to your car. It's out of here.
That's funny too, because garage selling, it's so funny, because you got different types of people running a sale. And then you have some people who are just like, you pick something up and they're like, please just take it. And then there's one garage sale I went up to, and I picked up the item and I'm looking at it, and the guy goes, that's museum quality. And I was like, look at the time, gotta go. I'm in your driveway. We're not in a museum. So
Right,
let's be a
right.
little more realistic. Or
If
you go in and everything has a paper they printed out from eBay. oh, that's $100 on eBay. Oh, so when you first walk in, you kind of know who you're dealing with and how much they want. And, I like the people that are like, oh, I pick up a few things and they're like, just make a pile and we'll think about it. So, those are the kind of garage sales I like to go to.
If you had to pick one channel to sell your items on to make the most money, what would it be?
Oof, that's hard. That's hard
Well, so answer
because,
that in two questions. What's your favorite? Because I'm sure the booth has some pluses and cons, and so does eBay. But
mhm,
share a little bit about that,
it's two total different things.
of
When you sell
course.
something on eBay, blank white wall, there's the item, you take a picture. If I take that same item to my mall, I have to stage it. I have to arrange it so that it's appealing for people to look at. So it's a whole different animal. It's funny because when the pandemic hit, our store ended up closing, I think, for like 6 weeks until they were trying to figure out what was going on. So, of course, that sales went down to nothing. eBay just skyrocketed because people still, I mean, shopping is something to do. It's something fun to an entertainment. So, I mean, when it went like that, if I wouldn't have been selling on eBay, I basically would have been making absolutely nothing. So I think having a diversity of where you're selling is important. But again, there's only so many people that are going to walk through that mall and see that item. When you put it on eBay, you have such a wide variety. Literally millions of people can look at it. So I think as far as dollar to dollar, if you put a whole year, I think I make a little bit more on eBay if I had to, compare it that way. But
Is
the
that
average
even breaking
people,
down the cost of the booth? Because obviously you have the cost of the booth, right? So
yeah.
your return on investment with the booth. I mean, I don't know your rent. Let's say it's $100. I mean, you have to sell enough items to pay for the rent, and then that's when you get into your net profit. Uh,
Mhm.
so is that? I mean, including your booth rent.
Yeah, because on eBay, there's fees. I have a store subscription, so there
How much is that?
is. Oh my gosh, is it like? I think it's like $40-50 a month. So,
Oh, and you
and
get
then
how
of
many items
course,
do you get to list with that subscription?
oh, more than I'll probably live long enough to list. So,
Okay.
because when I put things on eBay, I put them on buy it now. Very rarely do I, have send me an offer. I send out offers. I list it and I forget it. So that's always been kind of how
So,
I operate
so
on
you don't
eBay.
do any auctions on eBay?
I did auctions early on. I almost don't do any auctions now
Why is that?
because I basically know a lot of times what I want for something, and to put it on there and hope that there's enough hype of at least two people that want it, and in the time frame that I've listed it, I don't know. I just rather know what I want and be able to say if it sells, I got what I wanted. Sometimes people will send me an offer and I'm like, yeah, that's been sitting there a while. Or they'll say, hey, will you take any less? If I don't accept offers, I can reply with an offer. So if I've been sitting on something for a while, I'm like, yeah, I think it's time to, move it on.
And you just do that right from your phone as far as like the eBay
Absolutely.
app, I guess, whatever that is.
Yep,
That's
you
pretty
could just
cool.
pull it up and it has send offers, and then I could just go in there and then I can allow a counter offer, or I can say no, just one offer. This is all it is going to be. And if I do that, any activity you're doing on eBay is keeping your store in the algorithm, because eBay wants to see that you're constantly listing, rearranging, changing prices, sending offers. If you're doing that, your item gets higher. And a lot of
Oh,
times it's funny. I'll send an offer out. Let's say something's $50 and I'll send out a 44.99 or whatever. And the people don't accept it. Within a few days, it'll end up selling for full price. So just the act of sending out an offer kicks it higher in the algorithm. And then I end up like 8 times out of 10 end up selling it to someone else for full price.
All right, I'm going to
So,
hold you to this. If you had to pick one, your
uh,
booth or eBay, what are you picking?
there's a social aspect of the booth that I
I
really,
get it. I get it. You got to
there
pick
really,
one. You got to pick one.
I would say probably the booth,
Okay.
but I would have a bigger space because having on things listed on eBay and having a space, there's a balance of what needs attention right now, what can be moved to the side. Being a one person operation, you really have to get really good about time management, where you want to put your effort, because you are never ever going to list everything you bought. You are never ever going to completely get caught up and go, hey, I'm complete, there's nothing to do around here, I'll just sit back and enjoy. The only time I've ever remotely been caught up was during the pandemic, because I'm like,
How
well, I got all this stuff, man, it's time to,
if you had to ballpark guess, how many of your colleagues, as far as vendors and other resellers, do you know do booth and eBay?
very few.
Why do
Very
you think
few.
that is?
It's an age thing. It's an age
Okay.
thing, because there's a lot of people who are probably like 60 and up. I'm 54. So
You're a
there's a
youngster.
Yeah, so there's, I'm one of the younger vendors in my mall, and a lot of people do, sell there because that's what they know. They've done it for 40 years. They had their own store at one point. The idea of, oh, why don't you sell it? You could get a lot more on eBay. Oh, that's too complicated. So I think some of the younger vendors are doing that. They are listing and they are, selling in the physical space. So I think that's slowly changing.
Sure. Do you
And
think if the eBay setup, as far as the process that went through to get your items into eBay, was easier or it was more seamless, the older generation would try it? Or do you think it's just they just barely know how to upload an app? If they could go back in time, they'd keep their flip phone. Uh,
yeah, there's a reason why there's all those funny Facebook memes about people reply, because
right, right.
they don't, it's hard. And I know I fight learning something new. You just get to an age where it's like, oh, here's another pin number you got to remember. You're like, oh my God, I can't do this. So you end up getting into that. And I try and stop myself and say, you know what? I'm going to give myself an hour or two to try and figure it out. And if
Hmm.
I can't, then I'll escalate and ask somebody else, or I'll just do something different. And 9 times out of 10, you end up getting something. And then you're like, that wasn't that hard. But do I want more and more people on eBay? Maybe, maybe not. If people
Right.
think it's complicated, are they going to be willing to put in that work to do it and to do a good job? Because if you have somebody come in to my mall and they have a bad experience in someone's booth, that may or may not translate to me in another part of the mall. But eBay, somebody feels like they've been ripped off or misled, they could swear the whole site off. So,
Hmm.
eBay, that's a ripoff. You know what I mean? So if you don't totally know what you're doing and you don't have that confidence to do it, either learn or do something different. Because a lot of people jump into this business thinking, oh, it's so, I'm just going to do that and it's going to be easy. Those people get filtered out pretty darn quick on eBay or in a physical space in an antique mall. It's a lot of work. And I think people underestimate that. So people may jump in and then after a while they're like, man, this is more than I thought it was going to be. I just don't want to do it anymore.
How many vendors do you find are uh, into the social aspect of the antique booth vendor uh, versus trying to actually make money? Is
Too many. Too many. And this is an issue with ownership and management that I think they need to realize. That I know I'm always talking to my owners about it. I'm like, you should, maybe, well, they've been here since the beginning and, they had a stroke 2 years ago, so they can't do as much. But they just love being here and they love yapping with customers. And so I understand that. But when somebody comes in and they go down one aisle and there's 2 or 3 booths that look the same, haven't changed in months. There's some vendors that if they sold everything in their space, I don't think they'd make rent. So there are a certain percentage of people that are doing it because it's a social thing. It's a hobby. Hobbies take money,
And
jobs make money,
to
so
take into that social aspect of it, I've been in a booth since April of 21.
mhm.
And I can tell you I've made more close friends than any job I ever had. Any, like, even in like college, like those kind of jobs. I have
Yep.
more friends at this antique store than I do. I have them, like, we regularly like go grab lunch together.
Yeah.
All the older ladies are asking me how my kids are. Like, it's just that kind of social interaction at those.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a family vibe. It's way different. I mean, I think for people who aren't people, it's having a booth is probably not a good idea because I mean, and there are some people like I'll say, oh, a customer's asking about, oh yeah, hang on a second. I know their work. And I go over, hey, you got a customer? No, I don't want to talk to them. Some people, they just don't want to interact with customers. And I like to
mhm.
talk to my customers. If I'm there working, I'll say, they'll like, is this your space? I'm say, oh yeah. And oh, I just love your space. And I'm always looking for this. And if you find that. And so I like to talk to my customers and I feel like I get a better idea of what they're looking for or
Sure. Have you
that.
ever said, "Hey, I got that at home"?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's cool.
So
I have
yeah.
too.
And
Yeah.
and again, the whole ethics of, if I bring something in, once it's physically in the building, it has to go through the front register. I'm very careful about doing that. I pay a higher amount for my booth space because I don't pay a percentage. So different malls are different about that.
Hmm.
Some will say, okay, you're going to pay this amount and you have to 10% commission. Our mall also requires for my space 2 working days. So a lot of times when I'm really busy, I will pay someone to work my day. So everyone working in our mall is a vendor. And that's kind of cool because then if I'm there, I'm really working hard for you as a fellow vendor. And hopefully you're doing the same. I just went in to straighten up and put some items out Wednesday, and I had a vendor was talking to a customer in the next booth over, and he was a newer vendor, so he kind of was not real sure how things went. And this lady's like, well, this price tag says not for sale. She's like, but I really really want it. And he's like, I don't know. So of course I had to go interrupt. I'm like, I couldn't help it over here. I said, why don't you say, what do you want to pay for it? We can call the vendor. If they don't want to sell it, the worst they can do is say no. And it
Right.
was a very small, older, like, shelf with a few drawers on the bottom. Nothing fancy. The lady says, I'll pay $300 for it. So I looked at the vendor, or that was why I said, you should probably go make that phone call. And I knew the vendor would take it. So as soon as he called, he's like, yep, she'll take it. But it doesn't hurt to ask. And I was, even though I wasn't there on the clock, I mean, I felt good that I helped somebody find something they
Sure.
really want. I helped the vendor make a big sale, so having that mindset is very important when you're there. And if you don't work well with people, it's a hard job.
Do you think you lose revenue as far as people buying your items because trying to, basically kind of going back to that social aspect. So when people aren't managing their booths very well, they're not upkeeping, changing things around. How do you think that affects you selling stuff? And obviously, if it is affecting you, and as you said, you talk to your owners, what do you think the best steps are for that as far as how could owners fix that issue by mandating stuff? What would that look like for you?
I think, me personally, if I owned a space or I owned a mall, I think I know some places are more into vetting who's coming in. Like, oh, you want a booth? Okay, here you go. Give me the money. You're good. That you can't do that anymore. You have to say, what type of items do you sell? Are you looking to get rid of items from your parents' estate? Are you looking to do this long term? Do you specialize? Do you make things? Do you, furniture? Do you redo it, or that type of thing? So vetting people coming in, and then I think what would be a good idea
Does your
is to
store
see.
vet people, or they just say take a booth?
They have, because we
Okay.
have such a huge waiting list. It would be completely insane just to let somebody in who, oh, I make birdhouses out of, out of stuff I find in the trash. It's like, you're not exactly what we're looking. But it harms other vendors when you have spaces that aren't taken care of, aren't constantly being refilled, because somebody could come in and they're here, you're over here, and by the time they're at the end, they're like, this is all crap. That nobody
Right.
cares about, so they leave. So that if you get too many booths that are like that, it's a problem. And I think also, if you have people, the owner should go through and say, okay, who's at the bottom 10% of sales? Okay, who's not making their rent? Start there. You're not making your rent, we're going to put you on a plan. If you can't turn it around in 3 months, then you're going to have to go. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, but
No,
for
it
the health
doesn't.
of
It
the
sounds like good
business,
business.
the health of the business, it's
Yeah.
important. And I think if you did that with some of the people in my mall, a lot of them would be like, well, that isn't really what I'm here for, so I'll just go ahead and leave. So, that's something important. Take the bottom, okay, you have everybody's making the rent, great. Who's the bottom 10%, the bottom 5%? Go through and figure that out. Okay, we're gonna, we see things aren't going so great. What can we do as owners and managers to help you? We're gonna put you on a 3-month and see if you can bring that up. Great, awesome. If not, you're gonna have to go.
So just a little bit about I sell like kind of vintage toys, anything nostalgic from the 80s, stuff like that. And then I sell a lot of newer stuff. Um, so I was one of the top sellers in my store in March of 22.
Mm-hmm.
And after that month, we had an influx of people selling the same thing. So now we have like
Copycats.
15 to 20 booths selling the same thing. So my sales went, So I think the vetting thing makes the most sense. Like, what are you selling here?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to have 5 booths out of 100 or whatever that are all selling their own hand poured candles? I love candles.
Right.
Do we need that many? Are we repeating things? And I think that's kind of it ends up being kind of a lazy way of doing business. Oh, they're making a lot of money. Let me go look in your booth. Yeah, I could sell that. Oh, I could order that.
Or what about when you go and see your items in another person's booth that they marked up?
Don't care.
That's kind of,
that don't bother me.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have feelings on that, but if I don't sell something for what it's worth, that's my fault that I didn't do the research, that I didn't take that time. And if I sell it and somebody else decides to sell it in their space, then I can look at it and go, ooh, well, that was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way.
Where do you research your items? You Google or go on eBay? You guys both brought that up as far as people charging more or whatever. How do Derik and Jen, how do you guys both do that?
Go ahead, Derik. I want to hear what your take is.
I look at the last 5 sold on eBay. And that's kind of how I get my ballpark of what that's worth. Mm-hmm. And then I will take those last 5, average it out, and then make sure I'm getting 50% more than what I paid for it. So if that's a little less than the last 5 sold, that's great. But I typically, if I'm not selling online, I will price it lower for my booth than what I would sell it on eBay for.
Yeah, I find that to be true. And like you said, a certain amount of research, because if you look up something on eBay, you can get a pretty basic idea what people are selling it for. And then I also consider my area, my market. Are there people selling similar type items? Are they priced really high? Are they priced pretty reasonable? I don't like go around and go, oh, that one's 18. Oh, that one's 16. Okay, maybe I'll offer this. But I think after you've been in the business so long, you almost have this automatic thought process of
Mhm.
how much you're going to ask for stuff. And I can get my stuff cheaper because I do garage sale and I do go to a lot of places. So if you're selling something for 50, but you paid 20, I may have gotten it for 10. So, asking what
Yeah.
you think it's worth, what you want to make off of it. I mean, that varies person to person. I had people when I first moved in, they were like, "You're selling stuff too cheap." And it's like, well,
I get told that all the
yeah.
time.
I'm like, well, I know what I put
Yeah.
into it, and I don't want to have a museum. I want to have a space. I don't want to
Yeah.
dust. I want to put new stuff in, because there's
I don't
people
want
up
to
there. It's like a museum.
I've been known to go through like every 6 months and stuff that's been there for 6 months. I will put it all into a box and take it to Goodwill because I'm sick of looking at it.
Yeah.
So
I tell you, I'll even when I go through the booth, I'll pick up something. I'll go, I can't believe somebody didn't buy this. Because I like
yeah,
it and I bought it. But again, you buy something, and if somebody doesn't want it,
yeah.
they don't want it. And then
You
I take
mentioned
it. If I take it to Goodwill, I go, oh, I'm going like an hour away next week. I'll go donate it there, because if I see it again, I'll want to buy it again, and I hate that. Like,
you
oh, this
mentioned
is nice. Yeah, I donated. That's why it's nice.
you mentioned that the antique store that you're in allows a group of you vendors to advertise on the store's behalf.
Hmm.
How does that work?
A portion of like, let's say my space, I pay like maybe $6 a month. Beyond, my rent includes different things, but it includes that little percentage. So each month, everybody's paying, and it ends up being about like $2,500. So we take that money and then we decide where we're going to spend it. Um, you know, what is going to work best for us, what has worked in the past, what worked great, and now it doesn't work at all.
Do you guys
So
have
it's
a
a
committee for
constant.
that? Who gets to decide?
We're on an advertising committee, and
Oh,
if we pick something, we vote. I happen to be the treasurer, so I'm the one that writes all the checks. And we're doing more bigger things that cost more. Like we have a local sports baseball team that's like, just for like the county that our store is in, and
are you
we
guys
are
sponsor
at.
like your names on the little kids' shirts?
Well, they're going to have a couple of nights where we can set up a table and talk about what we do and get people interested. They'll shout us out. We'll
Hmm.
have a picture out in the outfield. And that's been a more of an expensive thing, but we're starting to put out a little bit more money, but it's so easy to say, well, hey, we could run this ad in the newspaper. It's only $50. Well, if nobody sees it, then you know, I mean, only grandma, who probably doesn't drive anymore and
Gets
puts
the
it in the bottom
paper.
of her bird cage. So, I mean, that kind of thing. So, yeah, we're going to spend a little more money, but now we have some commercials on TV.
Oh
We
wow.
advertise certain radio. Radio is so expensive. Um, so, certain places that we sell in there. Um, just Facebook has been good. I'm trying to get them to do YouTube ads. But again, it's a very nebulous, woo, unicorns. And so it's kind of hard to say no. That you can target people who you can target a demographic, you can type, an area, you can do all that. And it's very targeted. And I think we're eventually going to be doing that.
From what you guys have done so far, what has been the best bang for your buck?
Um, there's actually a show that's on Sunday mornings, and it is like a real estate showcase TV, they call it.
So it's
So
like a
it's
local show.
basically,
Local show.
yeah, and they do all of their own commercials. They have all their own camera guys. So if a real estate person comes to them, they charge them a certain amount to put it up on there, and then they have commercials that are throughout the program. And we've had huge success, because if you're not looking for a house, it's fun to look inside of other people's houses. So some
Right.
people just watch it because it's fun. We had a local TV station in Cleveland. that usually sends, this guy, it's Kicking It with Kenny. And, this guy shows up and it's supposed to be this, hey, I saw this and wow, this is what we're doing. And you have to pay for that. We actually had one of the producers came into our store and said, this needs to be on our show. So we ended up getting a spot for free. And we
Oh, wow.
literally had people calling, where are you located? What are your hours? We're coming. Oh yeah, we saw it. So trying to find those little opportunities and, doing it that way has been a very big help. And the repetition, because how many times have you seen a little place and you're driving by and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool, I should stop. And 6 months later you go by and it's closed and you're like, I didn't, you know what I mean?
Right,
So
right, right.
in our place, and I think most antique malls, we have such good stuff. It's just a matter of getting you in the door and you'll be back.
Right.
So, it's just getting you in there and then knowing what we have. Because some people will come in the plaza is the license bureau. They're literally holding their license plates and they're going, wow, I didn't realize you had so much stuff in here. Wow, this is real. I'm going to have to come back, or my husband would like that stuff. So, getting people in the door is, that's a big, big job.
That advertising committee and budget that the owners have set up, was that the vendor's idea, or is that was the owner's idea? What and do other stores do that? Is that common? Derek, does your
The
store do that?
No.
Yeah. See, the first store I was at, they had this type of situation, and I was just starting, and I'm like, oh, that looks interesting, whatever. I never participated, but it was set up in that initial store, and the people that were had half and half that were running this store ended up stepping away from this business. That's why they opened their own. So they said that's important. This is your money, and if you're a vendor and you're like, hey, how are you spending the money, or what's this? We're like, come on in and sit down, see where your advertising money is going. And some people are like, they have a lot of ideas. And then other people like, I give you my money and I don't care. You do whatever. My business is good. Just keep doing what you're doing. So there's the core, like 6 people that are there, and we make all the decisions on, where the money goes, what we should check out, what we should do. We do a lot of local stuff. I think that's very important for an antique mall to get involved locally in their town. So if there's like, oh, the church has a festival and it's right down the street from your place, advertise there. We have a bocce tournament place that's very close to our mall. People come from all over the country in the summer to compete. So we have advertising there, and people, oh, I got 2 hours and then I got then I'm playing another round. So we're constantly having that. So I really doing the local stuff, I think, is really important to do that. And we have a space right when you come in the door that could be a vendor space, but our owners have chosen to make it a community spotlight. So we spotlight, any nonprofit organization. We've had tons of them in there that help the homeless, that do all kinds of things, different organizations. So, keeping that local touch on there, I think really cements with people, we're local businesses. This is a small business, and all these people that run businesses, they're small businesses. And I think with the pandemic, I think a lot of people have been more focused on buying local, keeping their money in their neck of the woods. And I think that's a really good spot to be in.
Would you encourage other vendors to have conversations with their store owners if they don't currently have a advertising committee or a budget put into place to do such things?
It's a good idea, because the owner, 9 times out of 10, if they're not advertising, they're, I don't know, well, we've had this shop for 30 years and everybody knows about us. You still need to advertise.
Of
And I
course.
think if people encourage that, even if the mall owner's like, I don't really want to do it, you as a vendor can take your camera, take some pictures, put it on Facebook, have people share it, and then direct people to the mall. So those type of things, that's really getting people, in the door. And you don't have to, meet on a street corner and hope something doesn't happen to you if you're going to sell something. And
Sure.
it's a great way to get people in the mall. And as individual vendors, you have the power to do that. So they don't advertise. So I just hope people show there's things you can do to generate interest in what you have and the store.
That's so I don't know, it's been a few weeks ago. Derik and I walked into a local antique mall. And as we're walking through these aisles, first of all, there's like 15, 20 aisles. It goes back 150 feet. It's a pretty good sized mall. And every time, and this goes for every time I walk in one of those places, but Derik and I talked about it literally half the time we're going up and down these aisles. There's so many items. It would literally take you 5 hours to even see 50% of everything
Yep.
in there. It is a struggle to see all your items in there, or a store's items in there. What do you think a store owner could do to make that more feasible for someone who might be looking for a particular item? Do you think there's some things that they can do, or vendors could do, to help try to make that a little bit easier if someone was looking for a specific item?
We have like a general sheet where we have written down people who tend to specialize in certain types of items.
Oh, that's smart.
So it's
Mhm.
hard, but if somebody comes in and they're, oh, I'm looking for toys, or I'm looking, okay, well, we have these vendors, they're in this aisle in this area. We can do that. So that helps. I had a lady come in one day, and it was right before a holiday, and I was doing something for the store, and a lady came in and she's like, "Where are your candelabras?" And I go, "Well, we have a lot of vendor." And she's like, "No, where are the she wanted me to tell her exactly where they were, because a lot of people don't understand the concept. They come in and they're
Right.
like, "Why isn't anything organized? Why don't you have all the kitchen stuff in one area and all the furniture in one area?" And it's like,
Mhm.
it's a different way of doing things. So once people get on board with that, they understand. But some people, you know, she ended up stomping out. She's like, "Fine." So I was like, "Wow, okay."
Mhm.
You and plus everybody's constantly bringing in items. So somebody could come in and say, "Oh, do you have any little, like, I don't like the cheapy jewelry boxes. Do you have any like little old wooden ones?" They could be anywhere. So just tell
Right.
them we have over 100 vendors, we have over 100 spaces. People are constantly bringing in an item, so it's hard to tell. But if we have people, we call them walkers, that walk around and help customers. Sometimes there's people and they know almost everything. So you're like, "Oh, hey, so and so, oh yeah, I just saw over there's a couple." So having that kind of network, that helps. But I mean, literally just millions of items in there. There's just no way that you could
How many
ever
items do you think
have.
are inside your store right now? If you had to just take a ballpark guess and you walked in your mall, how many items do you think are in there?
Oh my gosh. It's literally it's got to be hundreds and thousands of, because some people have a booth, they have furniture, and then other people have, like me, they have a little bit of everything. So some people can have more items, and then other people just have bigger items. And some people, we have a few artists. There are people who do the tables, and they put the electricity to it and it makes the like it looks like lightning on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
We have some people that do that. We have people that make cat trees. So there's always
Oh wow.
a switch around of who's doing what, and people coming and going, life circumstances changing.
I think that's the key to success for a lot of malls is variety.
Yeah.
Because a lot of malls want to go to, well, antique furniture, and everybody in the store has antique furniture. Well, not everybody wants to look at antique furniture.
Yeah,
So,
I tend to find, and I also moderate a group on Facebook called Antique Booth Talk. We're right around 20,000 people, and it's funny because you see there are people who are in malls that you cannot have anything to sell unless it's a certain age. Like, they're
mhm.
very exacting in what you're allowed to sell. And then there's other people that are like, "I don't care, sell whatever." So people will say, I sell soap. Well, that's not antique. Well, not every mall has the same rules. And that group is, if you sell in a flea market, if you sell in an upscale mall, if you sell just little bits and bobs here and there, I mean, that group really encompasses everybody. And I've never been an elitist, because some people are like, oh, this is an antique. That's not an antique. Well, how can you sell that in an antique mall? And it's like, look, not everybody wants antiques, and not everybody can afford antiques. And if you can go in and find something from your childhood and your grandmother's house when you used to go visit her on Sunday, I think having an eclectic mix of a lot of things, I think that's really important.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
100%, 100%. I think it'd be weird for a mall to walk in, everything had to be at least 60 years old in there. I mean, I'd just be like,
Yeah.
that'd be odd. And once again, not everybody's looking for that, right? I like the mixture of stuff. I mean, that makes the most sense as an antique mall. What is the most exciting item you have ever found and sold? Like
Well,
something that you just got elated on. What was it?
yeah, I mentioned about the letters, the vintage letters, and the diaries. Anything that's kind of personalized or things you just don't see every day. I love ephemera. I don't sell as much as I come across, but anything on paper, an old menu, postcards that somebody wrote on, all those little kind of things that have so much personality, that stuff that I'm really drawn to. And selling those diaries for almost $300, and they're like, oh, if you ever find anything else like this, please let me know. It's hard, because I'm like, I find stuff when I find it, where I find it. So
Right.
I think I got a Black Forest cuckoo clock. A lady had it in a box, and it looked like everything was there. Those things are very temperamental. They're very hard to get working, even if they're in working order when you put it in a box. And it was raining this day at a garage sale, and the lady's like, well, I'll take 10 for that. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll think about it. So I'm still looking. She keeps coming down in price. And her husband's like, that's worth a lot more. And she goes, I'm sick of looking at it. So I ended up paying like $6 for this beautiful clock. And I ended up selling it for like $250.
Oh wow.
And if I find them and they're not working, I have one hanging up right now that's not working. I can piece it out and make way more than if I sell it whole in working condition. Because people want the pieces parts. You got the little bird that comes out and chirps. You got the front plate. You got the weights, the chains, all that stuff can be, piece parted out, because people are always looking for that. So, I mean, stuff
Wow.
like that, I love unique items. I had I think $10 at a garage sale, maybe 3 feet by 2.5 feet. It was like a 3D. When you have it hanging on a wall, it was a knight with his lance on this horse, and it was like it was coming out of the wall. And I ended up getting that for like $10. The lady's like, my parents have had that hanging in their den for forever, and none of us want it, so we're going to sell it. And I sold that for probably a little over 100. I was going to sell it on eBay, but I'm like, oh my God, the shipping
Oh, that'd be
would
a major pain to try to pack that sucker up.
Yeah. So in that case, I got a little lower, but I didn't have the shipping issue. But stuff like that, people always say, well, what do you buy to sell? And I says, if you ever go to a garage sale and you look at something and you go, ugh, who in the world would buy that?
Buy
That's
it.
me.
Right.
That's
Well,
me.
those are the things you want to buy, because I mean, like, to me, I would find it crazy to think that someone would want to buy old letters or a diary. Like, that's something that doesn't even remotely tickle my fancy. But clearly, I know there's a big market for it. And that type of stuff amazes me. Like, when people buy old Atari stuff, it's just like, you're really going to set up an old Atari game system on an
Yep.
old TV that you have in your basement, and you're actually going to play it. Because to me, I've played a few Atari games in the last handful of years. Considering how the technology today with gaming systems, you play that and you're like, boom, bing, the script, just thinking, okay, after like 3 minutes, you're thinking, okay,
Oh, it's the
that's,
nostalgia
I
though.
get it. I get it. But it's just kind of one of those things. I mean, uh, it's kind of like old records. I have a old record player that still plays 8 tracks,
Oh yeah.
and I have a bunch of old records, and I play my new record player because the old one just doesn't quite sound as good. And actually it's just collecting dust. And I'm always like, I should probably get rid of that to someone who probably wants it, who
Yep.
would probably use it. But then in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I could just probably just put it out on the curb and, someone would pick it up. But,
Yeah. My
um, you
son
know,
is 24. He buys albums. He has a record player. When he was going through some of his college courses, he would go garage sailing with me in the summers. He focused on a lot of video games, that equipment, any stereo, all that kind of equipment that I didn't know nothing about. He bought like a whole setup, like with a driving wheel that was meant for a couple of games.
mhm.
He got it for like $6 and sold it for like 300.
Oh, wow.
It, so I mean, he put
Mhm.
himself through college by reselling, and it's, even now, I mean, he has a really good job. He just got married in September, but he's like, every time I get a chance to just go into a thrift store and find something, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I got enough shipping stuff here. I'm like, you do that, you just bring it over and, you can ship it. So, I mean, he still picks up stuff occasionally, but I mean, he paid for college, never had to take a loan out or anything.
That's pretty awesome. What's your best selling year you've ever had? You don't need to tell us
Year?
yeah, what year? You don't need to tell us the number, but what year?
I don't know, it varies. Like talking about an antique booth this time of year, once the weather gets good, all physical brick and mortar retail stores don't really sell that well because everybody's going on vacation, graduating, going to parties, mowing their lawn, all that stuff. So there's certain ebbs and flows that you just go through. But it's funny because the last 3 years, you'd think like November, December would be the biggest. I end up making better money in January and February than I do in
Oh
November
wow.
and December. And I can't figure that out for the life of me. Uh, why? I mean, for our mall people, we have gift cards and things, so people will come in and do that. But I don't know what it is if people are just like, now I can go out and buy stuff for me or what it is, but I mean,
The one thing I've figured out about selling since 2021 is that the more you think you catch on to a trend, the less you do
yeah.
because it can change overnight.
Yep.
Like, yeah,
But
it's
see,
very
I have
frustrating.
an unpopular opinion with some people that I'll if something's like, trending, I'll sell it. You know how much money I made on redneck wine glasses back in the day? I was selling it for $10 a pop. Am I going to ride that wave until it comes in? Yeah, there's a few things I will. Absolutely.
Well,
No
how do
shame in that.
Derek and Jen, how do both you guys determine trends? Uh, and you know, and how would you try to tell a newer person getting into reselling where they could go to try to be educated on trends? Like, how do you guys find that stuff out?
I
I'm
don't
going
know,
to let
Derek.
Jen go first.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't certain trends. If I see things, I'll kind of try and maybe plug into that a little bit. But by the time a trend starts to kind of go down, that's when you start seeing it in the thrift store. So if you see something in the thrift store, it for the
It's
most
over.
part it's
Yeah.
it's already, yeah, because if I
Yeah.
had a penny for every Ray Dunn item I've seen, if you don't know what that is, I'm sure your
Oh
audience
yeah.
does. Yeah, if I had a dime for every time I've seen one of those in a thrift store, I'd be a rich woman. And I went to another mall and their entire booth was that. So it's okay to follow a trend, but do not base everything you're doing on one particular thing, because for a while, like glass, milk glass, other things were selling really well. Now people can't give it away. So if you're
Hmm.
basing your booth, I think variety is the best advice I can give to anybody, because you don't want Okay, I sell all jewelry. Okay, well, mostly it's all women buying. Okay, not every woman buys jewelry or wears jewelry or gives jewelry. So anytime you get real niche, it may look great when you walk by and everything's really all like the same type of thing, but that's not where your money is. Your money is in variety. And, anybody can step into my booth and find something they like. So you can be trendy, add it to what you're already doing. Magazines talk about, colors that are in, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Pinterest, you could go on there and look, but add that to what you're already doing. Because if you know what's good and what sells for you, then that's something you should carry. There's something I carry in my booth. I have a lot of fabric, and I've kind of become known for having fabric. So if I go to a garage sale or an auction and buy fabric, I roll it up and I sell it, and I that ends up being a really big chunk of my rent every month. Those basic
Hmm.
bread and butter items that you can always count on. And then if you have something, well, this is a little weird, or maybe people aren't necessarily interested, but I'll put this in. But you have your tried and true. And once you start, give yourself some time, because a lot of people, oh, I'm here a month, I'm not making any money, and this and that. It's like, you got to be there at least 4 to 6 months before you start really getting into what people are looking for. And if they're looking for things you have, you're going to have regular customers. I've had
Yeah.
people tell me, I save your booth for last because I know I'm always going to find something here. And I could just stand in here and look at everything. And those are the people that they will be your bread and butter customers. They will always, always buy something from you. But it takes a while for people to recognize what you have and then to keep looking at it and coming back. And then that's those repeat customers. Because I would say probably 70% of the people that come into our mall every day, they've been there before and they're
Oh,
back
wow.
because they want to buy more. So if you're only
Hmm.
setting things up for new people to look at, you have to keep changing things out, like we said, because you have regulars and they don't want to see the same thing every time they come in.
So,
Yeah, if you want, and another thing I do is if I'm working in my booth, I don't usually wear my name tag. You're supposed to, but I don't. But if somebody steps into my booth, I'll step out of my booth and I'll kind of wait. And sometimes I kind of listen in. And it's funny because people say, "Oh, I love these," or "Oh, I can't believe people buy these," or "Oh, I bought one of these before, you should try it." You get a lot of that real feedback that you wouldn't get if they knew you're standing right there.
Right.
That's valuable
yeah.
information.
So I think as far as trends, I don't know if you guys, well, they're still kind of around those bubble popper things, the like rubber.
Yeah.
I sold a truckload of those last year
Hmm.
when they first came out, and I knew about it because my son was asking me to buy them. So what I did was I went to every bin store in Kansas City and I grabbed every one for like $1, $2. I was selling those things for $5 a piece, and I was selling 30 of them a day.
What are you
And
what are you
that
talking about, Derek?
these little sensory type bubble popper toy things, they're like,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah. So I was selling them for $5 a piece, and I was selling 25 to 30 a day. I mean,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, I sell they're little squishies. I guess they call them squishies. They're like, you can stretch
yeah,
them and
yeah.
they're different animals. I sell those. I sell dozens and dozens of those.
Hmm.
I have sold stickers. Yes, I admit it. I admit it. I have stickers in my booth.
I love stickers. I collect stickers like baseball cards. My wife makes fun of
Oh,
me because I have shoe boxes full of stickers, and people go, why don't you stick them on stuff? Because as soon as I stick it on something, it's gone. I mean, I
yeah.
literally have probably 12 shoe boxes just jam packed. My wife makes fun of me because we were at the dentist the other day, and as we're leaving the office, I looked down. They had these little smile stickers, and I picked up like three, and she just goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I can't help myself. Like
Don't
I love
question
stickers.
me.
Yeah, it's my
I was
bad."
the first. I was the first one in my store to sell stickers last year.
That's an item that everybody starts jumping on, because I know you talked about when you
Now
start selling.
everyone sells stickers, and
Yeah.
I don't anymore. So
Yeah. That's, because people see that and or even like fashion rings. Girls like to wear something just for a couple hours. And I have rings in my booth. I sell them for $5 a pop. I pay little to nothing for them. So I know a certain amount of them walk out of the store. It is what it is. I mean,
Cost of doing business, right?
yeah, that's something too that a lot of people don't, they don't like to talk about. Well, the small items get stolen. We had a painting, like a sofa-sized painting. Somebody was walking out of the door, went right out, put it in their car and left. And somebody goes, wow, I wonder whose that was or how much it was. And nobody, it hadn't gone through a register. So somebody just was walking out like they knew what they were doing. They looked like they belonged there. So, it's not, just little stuff gets stolen. No. I mean, if somebody's going to steal something, they're going to find a way to do it.
Oh yeah.
How
And
much
I
stuff
know
do you
that-
think how much stuff do you think you have in a month or a year? Do you have a ballpark idea how much theft you've had?
I think if I knew, it would make me ill.
Mm.
But I have a lot of small items. Again, I'm paying very little for them. So if somebody comes over and steals a few stickers or a ring or, a little squishy that I paid maybe a nickel for, you have to live with that. And again, that's a job for when people are walking around the store, to say, hi, can I help you? You want me to carry that up for you? A lot of things like that can deter,
What
people.
about theft when someone switches an item like a label or a tag or a sticker on the item? How often
Our
does that happen?
particular, yeah, I'd like to see what Derik says, but I know our particular mall, we have stickers that we buy at cost from the owners, and they're uniform. And that is good because there's a lot of rules in our mall about you can't just cross off. If you want to drop the price, you either put another price tag on top of it with everything written out, that kind of thing. So
You handwrite on your tags?
yes. And, if you have an item, you could say, I have a vase, $5. You got to put more on that, like 8-inch vase, red, glass, whatever, so that when it does go through the front, they look at that. And if it doesn't match up, if you got more information, is it more work? Yeah. But, somebody could say, oh, I have this vase, it's $40, and this tag just says vase $5, and you switch it.
Right.
So, there's certain things like that you can do to protect yourself. But again, there's always going to be somebody who's going to steal. We don't sell bread, we don't sell eggs. There's nothing you need at our store, but it's going to happen. And
Right.
you can do what you can to lessen it. I know people on the antique booth talk, there's people putting cameras in their booth. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do when you're sitting on your couch and somebody's tucking a necklace into their, I mean, I get it, but you got to have a few little cheapy things. And if they get taken, like I have a big thing of earrings, they sell really great. I find those cards, sometimes you'll find it pitched behind something. We were selling a big trunk in the back. They moved it up front, opened it up, and there's a handful of stickers and other things from jewelry. So, sadly, it's an issue, and you're going to have to deal with it. And if you can't, then, maybe that isn't the business for you,
Right. As my grandpa used to tell me, locks only keep honest people out. So, if someone wants to do some wrong, they're going to. If someone wants,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
the
then you have
unfortunate part.
like Derik, do you have like a locked case at all in your space?
I do. Yes.
So, because there's a lot of debate whether that's, well, people don't want to bother to ask what the price is or this or that. We have that system too, but I don't know. I think a lot of things that get stolen in my space aren't expensive items. It's just, you see
It's
it, you
generally
like it, you
cheap
have
stuff.
that. Yeah. So I don't know. Everything's up for debate whether it works for you. I mean, if I had a locked case, I would have all the prices so you can see them. Some people
I
have all
do.
the price
Yeah.
tags hidden, and then you're just wasting people's time because it's like,
And
oh, it's probably too much anyway. I won't even ask. So
I'll only put stuff in it that's like $20 or more, though.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I expect that a lot of those smaller items are going to be stolen. That's just part of it. So
yeah. Yeah, even as a if I'm there and I'm working, I will literally walk around and go into people's booths and pull on their locks.
Mhm.
Just to, because then you find them, they weren't secured from the last person who got in. It was, whatever.
I've had to replace it at least 3 times because somebody's took some kind of tool and tried to break it off. Or
Man.
Yeah,
yeah.
we at my old place, they had a problem with the toilet. They took the lid off the tank, and there was some long, like almost like surgical pinchy taped into the toilet, so people would come in and take that and then try and get things out of cases. It's insane. I
Wow.
mean,
Mhm.
if people are determined, they're gonna
Of
steal,
course, of
sadly.
course. Well, I know it's basically garage sale season, Jen, and I'm sure you're crazy excited about that. And as far as you get to stock up on your stuff, how many garage sales would you normally hit in a day, or could you hit in a day?
um if I get a couple of good like neighborhood sales, I can really rack up the amount. The last 2 years have been kind of hit and miss because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want people in my house and I don't want people touching my stuff and I'll just donate. So there have been a more of an influx in things I found at a thrift store. But this past year, I went to 59 garage sales in one day.
Holy
And
moly! Is that a
and if
record?
you think
Wow.
if you think about it, I that means I got in and out of my car like
118
130
times.
times.
Right, right, right.
So I'm getting my steps in. So I mean, I
Wow.
just, I do as much as I physically can do. Being a one person operation, you have to, I do the most I can. And when garage sales season is going, I'm out there. And most sales in my area, they don't start super early, like maybe 9, but most of them start on Thursdays. So Thursday is my garage selling day. So
Mm.
that's what I end up doing. I go on a Thursday. I have my GPS, and I sit down. I have a few resources of places I look. I just put them all in there, and then I just leave my house. And I have from my neighborhood to where I used to live is about maybe 40-minute difference, and I just do garage sales in that space, and it keeps me
Wow.
going all summer.
Wow.
So, and just finding stuff real cheap. It's great. It's
I think
really
one of the
nice.
things that our members need to know is like, if you're just looking to make a quick buck by not doing anything, this is the wrong business for you.
Yep.
You have to be active. You have to, it's a full time job if you're going to make a living this way. So,
Yeah, it is. So between my YouTube channel, selling at my booth, and then having on eBay, it's basically a full-time income. But
mhm.
I mean, I have the flexibility of taking a week off or taking a few days
Right.
off. But of course, while you're not doing something, stuff's piling up and, you're not making money. So it has its advantages and its disadvantages, but it is a
Well, our
lot of work.
store has a lot of turnover from people. I'm going to start my own booth. I'm going to start reselling. And they're gone within a month or 2 months
Yeah.
because it didn't turn out the way they thought. Okay, I'm just going to bring all my stuff, dump it in here, never work my booth, never refresh it, never move things around. And what happens? I didn't make rent this month. Well, you didn't work it. So,
Yeah. It's true. You have to continually do it. And I know if you've ever saw the reselling show that Jason T. Smith did several years ago, he had a show on the Learning Channel or whatever. I forget what it was, but people started piling on because they're like, oh, wow, or oh, TikTokers, oh, I'm going to do this, and oh, I'm going to dumpster dive, and I'm going to this, and I'm going to that. You're seeing little snippets of the really good stuff you find or the really great sale that you made, but they're not seeing all the hard work that you have to do to make
mhm.
a living, to make it worth your time. And I think, like you said, a lot of people jump on. They have a vision. I like this stuff. I'm going to sell this stuff. You have to sell stuff you don't like. You have to sell stuff that doesn't necessarily
Yes.
appeal to you as a person.
Of course.
And
Mhm.
Well,
that's hard.
everything always looks easier on TikTok and Instagram, and People don't post, their bad pictures on Facebook. Here's a funny, quick little story. My middle daughter, who had a kid a few years ago, so he's Riker just turned 2, my grandson, and probably maybe 3.
Riker. Oh, is that a
Right.
Star Trek name?
I'm not for sure where it came from, to be honest with you. It's Riker with a Y, but about 3 months into her being a new mom, and this was like one of the craziest things I've ever heard Ginger say to me. But she looked at me and she goes, Dad, being a mom is nothing like it is that I see on Instagram. And I was like, what? Like, she just, because everybody posts all these, their little kid dressed up in all these, expensive clothes, and they're all done up and their houses look
Yep.
amazing and all these things. And she's like, that's not what being a mom's
Nope.
about, Dad. And I went, no joke, right? Like,
Nope.
it's
Get it.
so I'm sure people get hypnotized by the social media of the glory part of most things, as far as reselling and everything else, and then all of a sudden they jump in the middle of it and they go, man, this is actual work. This is harder than what it looks like. You got to, you're going to make some money on some items, and you're going to probably take a beating on a few items, and that's,
Yep.
you have to have some longevity in anything you want to do. So that's always a tough thing to try to figure out for, I'm sure, any newcomer in any business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you have an expectation of how things are going to be. I've often told my kids this when they were smaller. I said, your life is a movie. There's all these things that happen. And I said, then you got the trailer. It's all the little highlights and an explosion and this happened and wow. That's not your life. That's not real life. That's not how it works. So to see something encapsulated is kind of cool. I know I did a video, I think about 6 months ago. I had my GoPro set up. We were doing churning a lot of stuff in the booth, and I set up the GoPro across the aisle, and I did a speed through of me taking everything seasonal down, putting more stuff up, and it was fun to watch. But I'm like, that, I mean, you put it into 3 minutes, that was, an hour of work. So it's, it's not what everybody thinks it is.
No.
You talking about booths. I have this hobby I've picked up. Whenever I go to an antique mall, I take pictures of the worst booths that I could find. And I just pulled one up on my phone because I must share.
You'll have to email that to us too,
Look
so
at
we can
that.
share it as well. Oh my goodness.
Is that,
Whoa.
I walked by that and I was like, it looked like a dumpster had thrown up. So I said, I'm eventually going to take all these pictures and I'm going to sit down and do a video and go over,
You ought to start a Facebook page of just call it worst booth pictures at antique malls or whatever. You'd probably get quite a bit of following, because people love seeing dumpster fires. It's impossible not to look at them.
I've taken pictures, like there's booths I wouldn't even step in because I'm afraid I would end up, falling and they probably wouldn't find you. I mean, some of them are horrible.
Sure.
And, there are some people, when it comes to a garage sale or certain situations, I'll dig to find that item, but I ain't going to dig in an antique mall. You're supposed to have done all this work for me.
Right.
So it's like, when you go to certain places, you have a certain expectation of what you're going to see, the prices you're going to get. And, that's what it is. And if it looks like a garage sale, people are going to want to pay 50 cents for your items.
Of course.
That's all there is to it. So, I mean, people use it a lot of times as a storage space. And it's like, you can't do that.
Right. You mentioned earlier that Cleveland has a lot of bin stores. Are you buying those mystery boxes and pallets? How often do you do that?
I've never bought a pallet. The bin stores buy large pallets, and I don't know. I'm finding out this is becoming a phenomenon everywhere. That items that are returned, or hey, you sent the wrong item and they have you take it back, it does not go back to Amazon. It goes to a place that makes some pallets A
Right.
store will buy it and they will have bins or tables set up. They will lay everything out and okay, Friday everything's $10, Saturday everything's $9, and they count down until they get down to, fill a bag for $1 or whatever. And then they start it over the next week. And I find some items that I like to resell, but of course that being mostly all new stuff. There's certain things I like to buy. I've bought several backdrops for my photographs for eBay. I buy lamps. Lamps sell really well for me at my store, whether they're old or new. So certain things I can get there that I'll buy. But I'm such a cheapskate. I've never been on full price day because, I mean, I pinch a nickel till the buffalo cries. I mean, I'm a cheapskate, and I'm proud to say so. So, I mean, I'll go on a day that it's $1 or $2 and I'll find a few things to sell. It's more for the fun of going than
Sure.
necessarily sourcing.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
so, but I mean, unless you know a lot of different people that buy a lot of different stuff, you're going to get that pallet and you're going to find a certain amount of it's broke. Can't do anything with it. Certain amount, yeah, that's what I like to sell. And then there's the rest that it might be worth money, but if you don't know who to sell it to or you can't sell it, it's your problem now. So
Right.
I think if people want to do that or like storage, auctions and stuff, if you do that and you know the people to go through to, oh yeah, I know a guy who buys lamps. I know a guy who loves furniture. Hey, this is a this or that. That's great. But I mean, I have a small space, so I have to be very selective about what I put in there.
Mhm.
So, that makes my booth a little more, niche and a little more decorative and staged than just, hey, this just happens to be all the crap I found this week. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, everybody has their different styles of doing it, but I just don't think I would make the money I want to see out of that.
Right. Right. Well, I only have one last question for you. Derek may have another couple, but if you could go back in time, what would you change in your reselling career?
Uh, I guess my first antique mall I was in, I think I went big thinking, oh, I'm going to have much more space. I'll be able to offer more stuff. But say you get a 10 by 10 space. Okay, now I have a 10 by 20 space. That's double the rent. That's double the work days if you have them. That's double, all the fees, fines, whatever you have to pay to get that stuff sold. So you're not automatically going to make double the money. If you go bigger,
Mhm.
it's just not necessarily going to make you more money. And I think selling on eBay as well as a booth, if I didn't have eBay, I would have a bigger space. I absolutely definitely would. But if I went bigger now, my quality would take a dive.
Okay.
And I don't want just quantity. And I found myself being like, if I went somewhere to source and I wasn't really finding anything, I'm like looking, oh, get this. Oh, maybe I'll get, there was almost this, oh my gosh, I got to fill the space. And, quality took a dive. So quantity doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make that much more money. I mean, at least for me, it wasn't that.
Well, that sounds
Yeah.
legit, and obviously, hindsight's always 2020.
Yeah, it's just hard because being, like I've said 100 times, it's just me. So if I've occasionally hired somebody to do my pictures once in a while, hey, come over and work a couple hours, I'll pay you $10 an hour. It's worth it. But I don't know, I can be a control freak. I know, hard to believe. But I want to have my hands in all of the aspects of my business. I ship. I know it won't get broke. I list because I know I'm going to put all the details, so you end up saying, unless you're going to train somebody who's going to work a lot with you, it may not be worth it to hire somebody. I could hire people. I could definitely go bigger, but I don't want to be run by what I do. I want to continue to enjoy it. And I think if I lost the joy of what I'm doing, I wouldn't be as effective at it because I wouldn't be enjoying it as much. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Mhm.
So there's some people who are on social media who are like, "Oh, you got to get your name out there. You got to do more of this. You got to do more of that. Well, I don't want to teach people how to resell by having a class. I don't want to talk all the time about reselling. I want to do it. And the more things I see, I mean, there was an opportunity where our store had come up for sale because the owners were looking to retire. And my husband and I talked about it, and we were very tempted to maybe do that. And I said, I don't want to be sitting in an office corralling chickens and trying to get everybody to be on the same page. That's not why I do this job. And I said, I don't think I would be happy if I did that. So, you know, that matters to me. I mean, of course, making money, but if it's not fun, I mean, everything's a lot harder when it's not fun.
Always is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, Jen, we want to thank you today for taking the time and giving this insight and kind of to a reseller's mind, someone that's successful at it. That's all the questions I had for today. Drew, did you have anything else?
No, I mean, I could probably talk to Jen for hours and hours and hours,
I could too.
But clearly we probably, at some point, we need to kind of wrap this up. But obviously, you know, thanks so much to our members at CASA that makes this podcast possible. If this is the type of content that interests you, consider becoming a member at casamembers.org.
And it's 100% free, and we are a nonprofit. So we are here to help you resell. So.
Well, as I always say in my videos, when I find stuff for free in the summer and I say it's free, if it's free, it's for me.
Well, I always say if it's 3, I'll take 3.
There you go. Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
Right. So if you want to run through your social media pages, again, real quick, Jen, give yourself some extra added plugs. Obviously, if you can also email us anything that you would like for us to put in the description of this video on YouTube, and then clearly we will share it with you via email so you could possibly share it on your social media pages. We would absolutely love if you did that. So go ahead and plug yourself as long as you'd like to, as far as your social media pages. Give us all the digits.
Having that word of mouth, that really helps. So I will make sure to let all of my subscribers know. If you want to find me, just go over to YouTube and type in Pudgy Picker, and there I'll be. And in my description box, I have my social media, which I am sorely neglecting. So I got to get back on that. But I have an Instagram. The only Facebook I really have now that involves the business is the Antique Booth Talk. If you have an antique space, you have a flea market, any kind of reselling situation, and you want ideas, you need help in any way, or you're thinking about it, but you're not really sure, come on over and sign up there. There's so many years of experience on there. And a lot of times, if you do your research and you still can't quite figure it out, it's a great resource. And again, like I said, all my social media and everything is in my description box of my videos. So come on over and check me out and subscribe and give you a thumbs up, even a thumbs down. I don't care. It's all engagement. We like it.
On eBay, is it Pudgy Picker on eBay? Is that how I would have to type in? What's it on eBay?
No, actually, my eBay is all small letters, Jen's, JENS_closet. So Jen's Closet, because I've had that a lot longer than I had the Pudgy Picker. And so, yeah, but everybody's come to know me as Pudgy Picker. So check out my videos, and I really enjoy what I do, and I think that really comes across.
For sure it does. Well, thank you again, Jen. Derik, thanks for your time, brother man. And with that, we'll wrap this up.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, guys. It's been fun.